Welcome back to Adobe Live here, live from the Awwwards in Amsterdam. And for the next 25 minutes, I will be together with Marie van Driessche. Hello, Marie. Welcome to Adobe Live. And Marie is a graphic designer and interaction designer here from Amsterdam. And she had a talk here at the Awwwards yesterday. And yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about her own projects, her career, and her work in accessibility. So we are welcome here, of course, in the chat to ask any questions that you have for Marie. And yes, let's start off. When did you start in this field?
So graphic design, yeah, well, I wanted to become a photographer first.
Ah, okay.
I was looking for education in that way after secondary school. And so I wanted to do a course in photography. So I went to the schools that they have open days where you can visit them. And then graphic design, I was confronted with that. I'd never seen that before. And so that was image and text combined. And that was something I wanted to do, like using images to convey messages and information. So the combination of language and image was very attractive to me. So I signed up for the school, got accepted into the school, and made my way through all kinds of companies. And now I'm 30 years old, and I've been working now for about 7 or 8 years as a designer in various places and on various projects as well.
Do you still photograph?
No.
That's sad.
No.
So
yeah.
So did you do classic graphic design before you moved to interaction design and?
Yeah, actually yes. It's just a bit in the middle there. My sister has done the same education as I did. She was 2 years after me. We used a lot of paper, a lot of drawings. We just started using computers, and we had to do things ourselves with Adobe, for instance. And then when I graduated, we had lots of video installations and physical stuff that people were showcasing. So 2 years after me, when my sister graduated, it was so much different, all kinds of interactive web design. So I was just a bit, it was the last part of the older generation, so to say. So gradually I went into visual design. That was also one of my main interests. And then all kinds of other designs. And I noticed that websites didn't, communicate well, overloads of information or specific ways to, structure their information. And that's kind of like how I got into this domain. So we were talking about restructuring websites. So gradually I became an interactive designer as well.
Okay,
so and also visual designer combined the two.
So like with a focus on accessibility and this is something.
Yeah, so I'm focusing on accessibility more now because of my own experiences in this domain, obviously. I'm a representative of the deaf community, and lots of accessibility requirements are, easy or at least standard. There are structural codes for websites that have to be easy to read and have to meet the requirements. But what we normally mostly forget is how we can communicate clearly with language, with visual images, the choices that people make for their websites. I want to show people that they need to pay more attention to that as well. And obviously I base that on my own experience as well. People, and also it's not only for deaf people, as I mentioned before, but also for other people who speak that language of the website not very well or as a second language.
Do you feel there is an evolution in the right direction, or is it still very hard?
Well, it's starting to go that way, yeah. So I've noticed that in the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, accessibility is now a really hot item. So it's good that there's a lot of attention for it. There's a lot of buzz around it. I am here at the Awwwards conference. And we can talk about nice websites, but now we need to talk about good websites.
Yes.
That's also very important.
That's a very good point. So What was your talk about yesterday?
So the theme of my presentation was if you, when you design, if you take deaf people into account, this specific group, it's not only deaf people that benefit from this specific design, but also others. So, for instance, the choices that you make regarding language or communication or the way to present information, the hierarchy that you use, the structure that you use. And also one of the examples that I gave yesterday is that lots of websites have forms when you want to buy something or order something. Then you have to put in your name and your email address, and also always a phone number. And that is something that annoys me very much, because I know that they are going to call me. So I showed one of the picture in my presentation. During 1 week, this particular company called me 3 or 4 times a day, and I can't do anything with that. So after a week, they still don't understand that I can't answer the phone. So then I tried to call them back, but via an interpreting service, and then I got, in touch, and then I then I only knew that it was an energy company that wanted to sell me something. Yesterday I talked about this with someone about from marketing perspectives. Telephone numbers are very important, but you need to give your users the opportunity to kind of like realize or to decide that specific information is necessary or not. So they can have a choice to not fill it out. So that's a bit of a tension there. For me, so phone numbers not really important. Other people, yes, I know that. But
yes, so that's really about creating the best experience. It's really like experience design also, like for a much broader type of audience as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let me see if there's any questions here. Hello, no, just hello. Munir is asking, for example, how do you find inspiration and like material for your own work? Where would you research?
Yeah, research other websites, websites that work well and websites that work less good. So when I, get to a website that doesn't work well for me, then I know what works well, what could be done better. That's nice. That's good to work on for me. And also, I'll give some feedback on what's not really handy to work with, and other kinds of inspiration, just life, I'd say. As a deaf person, I move through the world, and maybe I experience life differently than other people do, in an auditory way. So for me, it's all visual, and I'd like to look at people, how they behave themselves, how they communicate. I can't hear what they say, but I can kind of get the gist of what they're saying through their body language, and I can see if people are having a good conversation or not, and why maybe, because I can read their body language. That's very interesting to me. And language is also, why do people choose specific words to convey something? Why do they pick this word and not another word? So those are interesting thoughts to me.
Do you find that, now you work for a big company, but also before, do you find that that development teams and design teams are being more inclusive today than, let's say, 5 years ago?
That really depends on the company, I'd say, I think that if we look at, from the perspective of designing itself and developers themselves, what we all want to do is is produce good work. So accessibility is part of that work, but sometimes we forget that, or designers forget that. And for me, as a deaf person, when I work in a team, the communication is most of the time a problem, an issue. Lots of people talk via auditory channels, so they talk to each other, and that doesn't work for me. So I need to get my information in a different way, and that is sometimes tricky. I don't have a very good solution for that. I don't have the best solution for this issue. No.
Okay.
No. It's still trying to figure out navigating through the environment as we do. And I think it depends on the team. If you work well with each other, smaller teams work better than larger teams, I would say. Yeah. And it's not impossible. That's not so. As I say, nothing is impossible. But from both sides, you need to have some patience. You need to get used to the way of communicating, and then, just take it from there.
Great. We have your website open here, and there were maybe a couple of projects that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I work at a bank these days, a big company.
We can't talk about that.
Well, but we have lots and lots of smaller projects, and it's not a real big project that I focus on. We have a design system now that I'm part of. We're thinking about redesigning processes, redesigning things, and also I focus on accessibility, what could be done better, what could be done differently, and it's good work. It's fun to do.
Does your work in accessibility also go beyond, like, for example, also like the inclusion of blind people, the colorblind people, other disabilities that can make site navigation complicated?
So the financial world is a very different world, I'd say. You can have a loan, or you can get a mortgage, and that has to be accessible for everybody. But in practice, I'd say we have to look at how we can improve those processes. And even simple things like transferring money. I spoke to a blind lady recently that told me how she experienced that. And that was very new to me also. So those are new development, new ideas as well. For deaf people, visual information, visual support is mostly enough. If you add that, blind people are a very different category.
So let's.
So my website shows some older work. My previous job was a very small company, very. It was fun to work at, and we worked for the government projects. And one of the projects was for a project called Energy in the Netherlands. And they asked us to, because in the Netherlands we have a lot of energy transferred. You can buy it, you can sell, you can make it yourself, and you can export it, and we export it as well. So the energy market is very variable and diverse. And they have a lot of data as well. And they wanted to make themselves more accessible and more lower the threshold for people to get this information from them.
And there's a question from Luc. Marie, if you design web, do you make them compatible with WCAG?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because there are lots and lots of requirements. I'm working on that right now. We don't succeed always, but we have to kind of like look into that a bit more. So it's a very good question. That's something I need to work on as well.
Okay.
So this energy in the Netherlands, they try to make it as easily understandable for just the general audience to understand the energy world. And there's lots of expert data and calculations, and that had to be comprehensible to people. So they looked at flow, how can we make that more visual and visually attractive to visitors of the website. So we try to explain what kinds of energy we have in the Netherlands, how you lose energy, what we use, the amounts of energy that we use in over time. And so there's lots of different ways to represent the data as well. So for instance, this is, you can look at 2016, and then you can look at only this year, and we decided on this style because we didn't want also the coal mine stuff. We didn't want to make it black because that, there's a connotation to that. We just don't want to. We wanted to make the information as neutral as possible. So purple, blue, all these kinds of colors, they have a rationale behind them. And also there's all kinds of data. And then the total usage as well in the Netherlands versus the division in
That's an interesting point because I think data should be impartial. Like it should not take sides. So I think this is a very good example.
Exactly, yeah.
Of showing it, yeah.
Yeah. And you can also see which sectors. There's this industrial sector. There's all kinds of different domains, and also total data as well. And then the division within those total amounts. That was a lot of. They had a lot of data that we had to comprise into, clear message, as clear a message as possible. So there's lots of interesting news about that. So the Netherlands is a land, but that we use gas. We used to use gas a lot. So there's a lot of discussion about that now. That we have to stop using that because we have one place in the Netherlands where you have a lot of gas, but the people that live there are suffering from that. There's voices now raised saying that we should stop getting that from the ground, and it's not as easy as people would think. So we tried to give them, the energy company wanted to give the information about the debate also to the broader audience as well. So you can choose by year, but you can also choose by other kinds of times.
Period, okay.
Periods, yes. So over a couple of years, 5-year period. So this was a very good, fun project to work on. And I learned a lot from it as well. And then we tried to make the whole flow visible in this graphic.
Beautiful designs. Yeah, I love it.
Ooh.
And
thank you.
So were you working in a team with a developer, and how did that work? Or did you develop yourself?
For this project, so we worked. There was some distance working, so there were drawings and things, and automatic calculation models that they would send. We would send to developers. They would send to us, and we would help with some snippets every once in a while, and then And it was a good program.
Okay. No, and in your actual job, do you work with developers, with other designers? Do you direct more, or do you still design a lot yourself?
Do you still design yourself? Yeah, I do some. I still design things. I worked on a very good and a fun project recently. There was this guy that asked me to think with him on this project. They wanted to look at. There was an end project, and they had that already finished, but they wanted to look at the look and the feel of the project and the flow. And it was very interesting that we discussed that. There was a bit of information put on the top of the site, and then we discussed why would it be there, why would that be important, and we redesigned actually the thing and made it a bit more intuitive. Okay. So that was fun to work on.
Is there another project that maybe is in your heart and that you want to share with us? Oh, West is is this the part of the Netherlands where people are sick and because of coal? Oh no, gas you said before.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
No.
No. This is something different.
Okay.
In the south of the Netherlands, we have archives. So there's photo material, also blueprints of houses, and there's also audio material and books and things. And they have a website, and we did did some research on the users. And people that use this website are people who are retired, are 55, 60 plus, and they look at history, at the archives, they look at their family history, and it was rather old. And the site didn't work well anymore, so we tried to look at what was the most important for the users. So that's also always the starting point. Obviously, that's the most important thing to think about. So in this project, we had to work with the system that was already in place. We couldn't change that. So they had an archive, they worked with that, and they had some limits to it. And with my colleagues, I tried to look at how we could tweak that to make it just a little bit more visually interactive, just a little bit better, just a little bit more accessible and easy to access. And it was, difficult. People who work in archiving have their own system in their head.
I know.
So it has to be, an archive number must be there, it must be numbered, it must be categorized this way. And for us, normal people, life doesn't have numbers like that. So, we had some tricky discussions about that, but that was fun. Well, this is a government project, so it's a bit slow, and so they have to finish the project yet. And it's it's very dry stuff. It's very dry historical data. So we try to make it a bit more visually attractive, and then to try to play with some tiles, and also have a guided search engine as well. Can I just have a sip of water?
Yes, sure. Absolutely. Very few questions in the chat, but it's good. And so what is in the future of Marie?
Obviously, of course, I have a mission in life. So I want to stay and design things, but I also want to be active in interactive design, visual design, and accessibility as well. So the VGAC code, obviously, that's very important. But also, I want to work from the basis that things could also always be better, because accessibility, for some reason, feels like something that is mandatory, that you have to do. And people feel it like it's a burden, and it's an afterthought, and something that is mandatory. So we can bring new things to that area, I think. So yesterday in my presentation, I also said something about that. It's interesting when you look at videos of Facebook now. 85% of those videos are being watched without sound because they have subtitles. And they also get watched more, twice as much, if they have subtitles. So subtitles is now more for hearing people than it is for deaf people, because originally it was for deaf and hard of hearing people. So now you see that other people can benefit from this solution in many other ways.
Well, thank you, Marie. I wish you all the best, and thank you for all the work you do. And I hope to have you on Adobe Live soon again. And stay tuned, we'll be back in 5 minutes here on Adobe Live, live from the awards.